My family mocked me for chasing music instead of a real job. Years later, they begged me for $50,000 to save their company. I gave it to them and ended up owning everything they'd ever built. Hey Reddit, a few years ago, Eli, 26 male, told my family I wanted to make music for a living. Real work, composing and scoring, not just playing around. They laughed, called it a hobby, said I'd fail and come crawling back. My dad flat out told me not to expect a dime. My mom stayed silent. My brother smirked. That was the night I realized I was completely on my own. No safety net, no cheerleaders, just me, a beat-up laptop, and a stubborn streak. I didn't know it then, but that moment would start a chain of events that none of them could have predicted, and I wasn't about to waste it. So, I was 18, finally done with high school, and had the nerve to sit down at the dinner table one evening and tell my parents I wanted to go to art school. Not for painting or dancing or whatever people think of when they hear art school, but to study music composition. I wanted to write soundtracks, scores, jingles, whatever paid really. Music always made sense to me, and I was good at it. Anyway, I barely got 5 words in before my dad started shaking his head like I just told him I wanted to be a magician. You're serious? He said, already rolling his eyes. Yeah, I've already applied. Got a partial scholarship too, I said. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and gave me that look, the one he used when I spilled juice on the carpet as a kid. Just pure disappointment with a side of disgust. I'm not putting a single dime into that, he said flatly. You want to waste your time playing piano for YouTube or whatever? You do it on your own. My mom just kept eating like nothing was happening. Not a word from her. No support, no curiosity, no, good for you, honey. Just silent chewing. My younger brother, Zach, 24 male, looked up from his phone just long enough to smirk before going back to his little group chat, or whatever he was doing. That guy had just enrolled in some business-adjacent program 2 towns over and was already being treated like the second coming of Steve Jobs. So yeah, that was my big family moment. A career announcement and a total shutdown within 45 seconds. Awesome. I tried to argue a little, told them about the school, the professors, even showed them one of the video game trailers I scored the music for in high school. My dad didn't care. You want to be a starving artist, be my guest, he said. But don't come crying back when it all crashes. I remember just staring at him, trying not to say something I'd regret. But honestly, looking back, I should have said it. Should have called him what he was. A controlling jerk with zero imagination. But I didn't. I just nodded, got up, and walked out. I knew at that point I was on my own. So yeah, 2 weeks later, I packed my crap. Took a duffel bag, a backpack, and maybe $350 to my name. Moved into a student apartment with a roommate who listened to heavy metal at 3 a.m. and cooked eggs in the microwave. Not even exaggerating. Life sucked. But you know what? I survived. Barely. But I did. I downloaded a cracked version of a music program, no regrets, started making loops and samples on my beat-up laptop. Sometimes it overheated and shut off mid-export, but I worked around it. I had to. Meanwhile, back home, Zach was living it up. Parents paid for his tuition, his rent, even gave him a car. One of those basic sedans that makes people think they've made it. Every time I saw a family photo on Facebook, he was front and center. Me? I was just the name they didn't mention. Probably told people I was finding myself or some crap. And the funniest part? They genuinely thought I'd come crawling back. That I'd fail, admit they were right, and ask for help. Nah, that wasn't happening. I remember one night calling home, just to see if maybe things had cooled down. Mom picked up. Oh, it's you, she said. Not, hi. Not, how's school. Just, that. I told her about a small music contract I landed. A local commercial. Not a huge deal, but still. She said, that's nice. Like I told her I found a penny on the street. Then she asked if I was still planning to get a real job eventually. That was the last time I called. So yeah, the first year was rough. Ate a lot of cereal. Missed rent once and had to pay a late fee. Got sick and couldn't afford medicine, so I just sweated out. Slept in hoodies to save on heating. But I kept going. Every insult from my dad, every ignored message from my mom, all of it pushed me harder. I didn't want their money. I wanted to prove I didn't need it. I'm not saying I was a saint or a genius. I made dumb choices too. Blew money on a bad mic once. Spent way too long on a remix nobody asked for. But I kept showing up, kept working. That first year, not one family member visited, not one birthday card, not even a freaking text. I didn't care. Or at least, I told myself that. So, yeah, that's how it all started. Me with my crappy laptop, $2 headphones, and a dream that apparently made me a clown in my own house. But joke's on them. I wasn't done yet. By the end of my second year, I had 4 steady clients. One of them paid me monthly to make background music for his meditation app. That one deal covered most of my rent. I opened a separate bank account just for music income and set up a cheap website. Logo was just my initials in lowercase with a treble clef next to it. I wasn't famous. I didn't have a million followers, but I had a system that worked. Record, mix, upload, repeat. I stopped checking view counts and focused on building a catalog. Some videos took off, some didn't, but the work didn't stop. Graduation came fast. I passed everything. Right after college, I moved into a slightly better apartment. This one had real windows and didn't smell like a wet towel. Still nothing fancy. Furniture was all secondhand. The only new thing in the place was a set of studio monitors I bought with a one-time bonus I got from scoring music for a regional clothing brand's ad. My business was picking up. I started getting referrals. Clients mentioned me in their credits, tagged me in posts. I didn't tell my parents anything. As far as they knew, I was still doing music stuff. That's how they said it, like I was selling mixtapes at bus stops. I didn't correct them. I didn't post earnings or show off equipment. I just kept working. They called a few times early on. Mostly short, awkward conversations. My mom once asked if I planned to get a real job eventually. I told her I was doing fine. That was the last time she brought it up. Zach, on the other hand, got a car and a job at Dad's company. They treated him like he cured cancer for showing up on time. Meanwhile, I was paying taxes on freelance income and sending out invoices in between meal preps. No bitterness, though. Just facts. I kept a spreadsheet of every project, every client, every dollar. Not because I wanted to brag, but because I needed proof for myself that it was all legit. I wasn't chasing fame. I just wanted to never owe my family anything again. 1 year after graduation, I landed my biggest deal yet. A chain of yoga studios needed music for their video classes. They sent me a shot list, a playlist, and a contract. $4,200. Paid up front. 3 weeks of work, and they extended the deal for 2 more rounds. I looked at the transfer, took a screenshot, and stored it in a folder labeled Receipts. Not for the IRS, for me. That was the moment I stopped worrying if I was on the right path. It had been nearly 2 years since I got out of school and turned my side hustle into a full-time gig. I was keeping a decent rotation of clients, had a rough calendar that didn't leave me scrambling, and finally had enough saved that I wasn't checking my bank app before every grocery run. I'd built up a decent savings cushion, 5 figures in the bank, no loans, no debt. My studio had started pulling in more than my old pizza and retail jobs combined. I wasn't rich, but I was stable. Had backup. Enough that when I saw a big number like 50 or 70 grand, I didn't panic. I ran the math. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from a number I hadn't seen in a long time. It was my dad. I just stared at the screen when it lit up. It didn't feel nostalgic. It felt like a setup. I hadn't spoken to him in almost a year. Last time we talked, he made some offhand remark about how some people just want to chase dreams instead of building something real. I think that was the last straw for me. I didn't argue. I just stopped replying after that. Now, here he was calling. No warning, no message beforehand. It rang twice. I let it go to voicemail. He called again immediately after. Second time, I answered. Not out of curiosity, but because if someone like that calls twice, it's usually about money. He didn't bother with small talk. Just said, I need to talk to you about something important. I said nothing. Just waited. He jumped straight into it. There's been a contract issue with the company. A major client pulled out last minute. We're looking at a serious shortfall. If we don't fix it by next month, there's a chance we'll lose the business. I let him keep talking. He explained they were facing late penalties and cash flow problems. Legal costs were stacking up, blah, blah, blah. Then he dropped the number. We need 50,000, he said, like it was a normal number to say out loud, like I could pull that out of the glove box. I asked, why are you calling me? He paused just long enough to be noticeable. Because we know you've done well for yourself. Interesting. I hadn't shared anything. I never posted my wins, never talked about client names, never sent them updates. They didn't even know I moved apartments. But clearly, someone tipped them off. Maybe a cousin, maybe someone saw my name on a campaign or credit roll. Who knows? Point is, I'd apparently graduated from kid playing with keyboards, Tucson with money. I said, you think I have 50 grand lying around? I know it's a big ask, he said, but this is a short-term need, just to keep things afloat. We'll pay you back. I didn't say anything. He added, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I asked him if there was any formal plan for repayment. Timeline, interest, something concrete. His tone changed. You don't trust your own father? He said. I'm running a business, not a charity, I told him. It's family. It's the company. You used to care. That part was funny, considering how little they cared when I was broke, but I didn't say it. I just said, if you want help, I need it in writing. He got quiet for a second, then said, you'd really need paperwork for this? Yeah, I would. He got irritated, said I was being dramatic, told me I was treating him like a stranger. I responded with, that's how business works. If you wanted it done differently, you should have treated me like family years ago. He said he'd talk to my mom and call me back. I didn't expect a second call, but it came 2 days later. This time from my mom. She tried the softer approach. Said things were tough. Said Zach had made a mistake with a negotiation, and now the company was bleeding money. She mentioned the number again, 50 grand, and said if I helped, they'd make sure I was taken care of. I asked, what does that mean exactly? She said something about shares in the future, maybe a formal role, possibly something down the road once things were more stable. I said, can you put that in writing? Same silence, same awkward pause. Then, we just thought you'd want to help your family. Classic. I told them I'd think about it and hung up. Truth was, I already knew what I was going to do. Not because I trusted them, I didn't, but because letting them sink completely without warning would burn a bridge I might need later. If they took the money with no contract, that was fine. I'd still treat it like a loan and keep every scrap of proof for the day they pretended it was a gift. 3 days later, I sent the money. Full amount wired to the company account. No contract, no agreement. Even without paperwork, I told my mom on the phone this wasn't a gift. I said I expected it back. She didn't argue, just said, we'll figure it out. That was enough for me to treat it as a loan. I waited for some kind of response. A thank you email, a text, even a thumbs up emoji. Nothing. Only thing I got was a transfer confirmation and total radio silence. Not even a got it from my mom. Just silence, like the money showed up out of thin air. A week passed, then another. Still nothing. They took the money and disappeared like they always did. I wasn't surprised. I was just disappointed in myself for expecting them to act differently. A month later, I found out through my aunt, who I still talk to occasionally, that the crisis was resolved. The company avoided penalties, and everything was back on track. She told me Zach had stepped up and handled the situation. No mention of my help. No mention of who actually provided the funds that fixed the mess. Just praise for Zach and how he's becoming a real leader. That was the moment it all clicked for me. They weren't ever going to see me as anything but the backup plan. Not the successful son, not the responsible one, just the guy who'd probably help out when things got bad and then disappear again until they needed something else. I archived the wire receipt, marked it in my business records, and filed it under loss. I didn't chase them for the repayment. I didn't follow up. I let the silence speak for itself. What mattered was now I had proof. I knew how they operated. And the next time they tried anything, I'd be ready. And guess what they did next? They invited me to the next family holiday gathering. Guess when it was? Christmas. They called a week before Christmas. Not to talk, not to catch up, just to invite me to the family dinner. My mom sent a text that said, hope to see you at Christmas this year. Everyone will be there. No apology. No thanks for the $50,000. Just a vague holiday invite like nothing ever happened. I wasn't planning on going, but a part of me thought maybe they'd finally acknowledge it. The money, the help, the fact that without me, the company wouldn't even exist. Maybe they'd finally treat me like I wasn't invisible. Stupid thought, but whatever. I said yes. I brought a small gift for my mom, a scented candle from a boutique near my studio. Nothing flashy, just something I knew she liked. I showed up 15 minutes early, like always. House looked exactly the same. Decorations from 10 years ago, tree blinking in the corner. Too many people trying to fit in one room. There were cousins I hadn't seen since high school. A few uncles shaking hands like we were at a job interview. Everyone was dressed nice but fake smiling through it. I dropped the candle off in the kitchen, said hi to the people I recognized, and grabbed a plate of appetizers just to look busy. The conversations were typical. Someone bought a new SUV. Someone's kid was applying to college. Property taxes went up again. Zach was apparently running the company like a boss, according to one uncle who used to fall asleep during family dinners. Nobody brought up the $50,000. Nobody even mentioned it in passing. I stayed quiet, sat near the window, and ate my food. No one asked what I'd been up to. One aunt said, still doing music stuff? like I was 12 and still learning guitar. I nodded and moved on. Dinner got served an hour later. Ham, mashed potatoes, that watery green bean thing they make every year. I sat near the end of the table next to the dishwasher. Zach sat across from Dad, laughing like he wrote the menu himself. Halfway through dessert, Dad stood up. He had a glass of wine in one hand and cleared his throat like he was about to accept an award. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for being here, he said. This year has been difficult, but thanks to hard work and strong leadership, we pulled through. Everyone nodded. Some clapped lightly, for whatever reason. He continued, to ensure the stability of the company going forward, we've decided that starting next quarter, all company assets, shares, and related holdings will officially transition to Zach. There it was. Applause started almost immediately. Someone even let out a cheer. It wasn't just a casual announcement. It was a full-on passing of the crown. Toasts, backpats, congratulations. I sat there holding a fork midair like an idiot. No mention of how the company was saved. No mention of the 50 grand that came out of my bank account. No mention of me. I didn't clap. I didn't smile. I waited for it to pass. And when things got quiet again, I stood up. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam anything. I just said clearly, so I saved the company and he gets the keys to it? Everyone froze. Eyes turned to me like I'd crashed a stranger's wedding. Dad's face dropped. Eli, don't do this right now. I'm just asking a question, I said. I gave you $50,000. No contract, no interest, nothing. I gave it because you said it was a family business. You said I'd be taken care of. Mom chimed in. You are taken care of. You're doing fine. You have your own business. I stared at her. Yes, I built that on my own. No help, no support, nothing from any of you. Meanwhile, you paid for Zach's school, his car, his apartment, and now you hand him the company like it's a birthday present. Zach finally opened his mouth. This isn't about money. It's about legacy. I looked at him. Your legacy almost tanked the company. I saved it. Dad slammed his hand on the table. That's enough. You walked away from the business years ago. You chose your path. And you chose to keep using me whenever it was convenient, I said. If my work is such a joke, why did you take my money when you needed it? No one had an answer. So I kept going. If you think Zach deserves the company, fine. But don't act like I don't exist. Don't pretend I didn't bail you out when your golden child couldn't even read a contract properly. Dad's face went red. You don't get to show up here and insult us. We invited you in good faith, I scoffed. You invited me so I'd sit here quietly while you hand my work over to someone else and pretend he earned it. Zach tried again. This isn't personal. I cut him off. It's always been personal. You just weren't the one losing. Then I stepped back from the table. I'm done. Don't contact me again. Don't ask for help. Don't drop by my place. From now on, handle your family business with your chosen family member. I turned and left. Didn't finish dessert. Didn't say goodbye. On the way out, I saw the gift I brought still sitting unopened on the kitchen counter. I left it there. Let them decide what to do with it. I got in my car and drove home in silence. No music. No podcast. Just the sound of the engine and the heater clicking every few minutes. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shocked. I was just done. When I got back to my apartment, I blocked their numbers. Mom, Dad, Zach, all gone. Took 10 seconds. Then I opened my laptop and started updating some legal documents. I didn't know what would come next, but I knew one thing, that money was no longer a gift. It was a debt, and I was going to collect. Within 3 weeks of that night, things went weird. Not dramatic, just off. A couple of clients ghosted me after saying they were ready to book. One backed out of a session last minute and never replied after that. Another said they'd get back to me next month, which usually meant never. At first, I figured it was the usual post-holiday slump. People broke, distracted, unmotivated, but it didn't sit right. Then Liam called. He'd been recording some demos with me off and on. Good guy. Chill, reliable. He was up front. Hey man, just wanted to say something in case it comes up. Zach's been talking. I leaned back in my chair. Talking? Yeah, like, he told Greg at the barbershop that you ditched the family during the holidays after everything they did for you. Something about how they helped fund your studio and you bailed on dinner, demanded money back, and now you're trying to sue them. I blinked. That's almost impressively wrong. Liam just laughed awkwardly and said, Figured you should know. It's kinda getting around. I knew it was garbage, but you might want to get ahead of it. So that explained the drop-off. Zach wasn't blowing up Facebook or Reddit. He was playing it sneakier. Private conversations, selective half-truths, Enough to plant doubts, but not enough to get caught red-handed. A good old-fashioned whisper campaign. Classy. I didn't even text him. I knew better than to play the direct game. Instead, I screenshotted the text from Liam, saved all the recent cancellations, and forwarded it all to Bryce, my lawyer. He called me back the same night. You were right to log this. They're careful, but this still qualifies as defamation and business interference. Even without public posts? I asked. Yup. If you're losing business because of knowingly false claims, it's actionable. We're not going nuclear. We're going professional. I gave him the green light. The next morning, I drafted a short message I sent out to all active and recent clients. No drama, no emotional appeals. Just the facts. Hey, just a heads up. I've been made aware of some false info being passed around regarding my business and family. I'm handling it legally and want to assure you everything on my end is solid. If you have any questions, let me know. Appreciate you. Most didn't respond. A few thanked me for the transparency. One asked, So, did you really skip Christmas dinner? I just told him, yup, and I don't regret it. Business slowed down hard for a bit. Took a couple weeks before things felt stable again. But once people saw I wasn't folding, that I still showed up, delivered work, and stayed professional, the noise started fading. Word of mouth kicked back in. Slowly but surely, it picked back up. I paused new bookings for a week, tightened my intake process, rewrote my contract terms to make things cleaner. Small adjustments, but ones that made me look even more locked in. That alone reassured a few clients. Meanwhile, Bryce started working on the claim. He gathered everything. Old texts from when I helped fund the company, screenshots of mom calling it a loan, the recorded bank transfers, and the new signs of sabotage. The defamation claim was added to the breach of verbal contract filing. No press, no noise, just quiet legal movement. A week later, I got a call from mom. I heard you're trying to sue the family? I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I said, I'm making sure I get back what I earned. That's all. She sighed like I just dropped her off at a nursing home. Why are you doing this? We're supposed to support each other. Oh, like how you all supported me at Christmas, I said. She paused. That wasn't fair, but this is extreme. I'm done playing fair with people who treat me like a wallet. She hung up. That weekend, Dad sent a one-line email. Let's handle this maturely. Call me when you're ready to talk. I forwarded it to Bryce. Monday morning, Zach tried calling. I declined. He texted, You're really going to drag us to court like some stranger? Over what? I didn't answer. I screenshotted it, logged it. The funny thing was, the more they tried to guilt trip me, the less I cared. These were the same people who clapped for my achievements like it was a favor. Who told me I was lucky, not talented. Who took the $50,000 and pretended I owed it to them? Nah. Bryce filed the motion officially that week. A court date was set for 2 months out. Just enough time for everything to fester on their side. Then things got messy. For them. I found out through one of my old high school friends, who worked in logistics, that Zach's company had started bouncing checks. One of their vendors pulled out over a missed invoice. I didn't ask. He just told me over lunch. They're losing contracts left and right, man. Word is their books are a mess. Shame. Another friend, who did bookkeeping, told me an audit got triggered on their side. An old tax filing issue. Not illegal, but enough to flag some penalty fees. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post about it. I just updated Bryce and moved on. Meanwhile, I booked a new local artist. She was doing a mini documentary and needed an original score. Big exposure, good pay, and, best of all, zero drama. Just work. I started sleeping better. The clients that stuck around? Loyal as hell. One even told me, I respect how you handled all that family crap. You kept it clean. That's all I wanted. Clean, quiet revenge. Zach could run his mouth in grocery store aisles. I'd run my business. And legally, I was just getting warmed up. A week after Bryce filed the civil suit, things went suspiciously quiet on their end. No calls, no emails, no let's work it out nonsense. Which was weird, considering how loud Zach usually was when he felt cornered. I figured they were either panicking behind closed doors or pretending it wasn't happening. Either way, not my problem. Then, on a random Tuesday, Bryce forwarded me an email from their side. Their lawyer had finally responded with a classic, My clients are eager to resolve this matter amicably, without resorting to trial. Translation, We're sweating bullets and want out. Bryce wasn't impressed. They want to offer you $15,000 and a signed misunderstanding statement. I laughed. So, $15,000 for a $50,000 loan plus damages, and they want me to lie about it too? Pretty much. Counter with something brutal. He grinned through the phone. Already drafted. Bryce's offer was glorious. Full repayment of the $50,000 with 6% interest. Legal admission of interference and liability. No more misunderstanding garbage. If they defaulted, I'd be entitled to assume ownership of Zach's shares in the company as collateral. No drama, just chess. A day later, Zach sent me a 2-paragraph rage text about how I weaponized lawyers and was trying to steal the company. I didn't reply. Just passed it to Bryce. Zach could yell into the void. I had stuff to do. Business-wise, things were finally smoothing out. The clients who stayed were locked in. The ones who bailed weren't missed. I even got a call from a local director working on a short film who wanted original music. Word was spreading that I wasn't just the guy with a home studio. I was reliable, sharp, legit. Meanwhile, karma was stretching its legs. I got lunch with an old logistics buddy, Ryan. He didn't even know about my legal stuff. Just casually mentioned that Zach's company was having trouble with a supplier. They're losing contracts. Something about late payments and internal disorganization. You know anything? I shrugged. Couldn't tell you. It wasn't me. I wasn't sabotaging them. I was too busy making synth loops and tuning vocal stacks. But I didn't need to do anything. The collapse was homegrown. A week after that, I heard from Beth. She did bookkeeping for small firms around town. She said one of her clients got a call from the IRS about a missed corporate filing. Guess whose name came up? Apparently, Zach had filed something sloppy years back. The IRS flagged it during a random audit sweep. Total coincidence. But when the audit hit right after the lawsuit, couldn't have scripted it better if I tried. Sometimes karma syncs up with the taxman. Nothing criminal. But it triggered a compliance audit for the company. That's like a root canal, but for finances. I didn't even smile when I heard. Okay, I smiled a little. Then Mom called. Not yelling this time. More like gentle concern. Like I was her troubled son going through a phase. Honey, things are really tough right now. I know this lawsuit's important to you, but it's hurting the family. The family hurt me first, I said. It's just gotten so heavy. Maybe we could all sit down and talk. Like last time, where you all gaslit me into thinking I owed you something? She sighed. You're so stubborn. I hung up. Bryce messaged me 2 days later. They're trying to delay the hearing. Their side says they're having financial complications and might not be able to comply with the terms even if they lose. Translation, they're broke. Then, cherry on top. I found out Zach let go of 2 employees. Cost reduction, according to a mutual acquaintance. Except one of those guys, Marcus, used to be the entire back-end coordinator. Without him, things were going to slip fast. And slip they did. Contracts went unsigned. Vendors didn't get paid on time. They tried pitching new clients, but couldn't lock down deals without updated paperwork, which apparently went missing during their internal restructuring. Meanwhile, my studio was thriving. I moved into a slightly bigger space across town. Just enough room to add a soundproof vocal booth and a second desk for occasional collaborators. Bookings filled up 2 months in advance. I didn't advertise, didn't need to. Then Bryce dropped the bomb. They're considering putting the company up for quiet sale. That stopped me. You serious? Yup, we're watching their lawyer's side carefully. It's not public yet, but they've asked for documents on bankruptcy protections and asset transfers. So the company I helped fund, the same one Zach weaponized against me, was about to fold, and I had the option to buy it. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to. I didn't need it. I didn't want to run their broken operation. But Bryce reminded me, you don't have to keep it, you just have to take it. Owning it meant control. It meant they couldn't run it anymore. It meant closing the loop. That night, I stared at the ceiling thinking about it. The meetings I sat through when I gave them the loan. How they kept me just close enough to use, but never close enough to matter. How they treated me like an outsider at my own family's table. Yeah, I was buying it. Not to save it, to end it. 7 months after the audit notice, their company was officially listed for internal sale. Quietly. They didn't post it online or throw out feelers to random investors. Just passed the word to a few trusted contacts, hoping someone would bail them out. Turns out, most people didn't want to buy into a bleeding ship. Except one person did. Me. Through a shell company, just like Bryce suggested. Cleanest way to do it. No drama, no family name, just another interested party. Bryce set it up. They never knew it was me signing the papers. Bryce made sure my name never touched the deal. The lawsuit was still active while the buyout was happening. Bryce kept the legal stuff airtight. No overlap, no conflicts. The sale closed first. Only after I officially owned it did he wrap up the case. One move at a time. We used a legit-sounding name, North Bay Systems. something generic and forgettable. We submitted a low offer, way below what the business was worth 2 years ago. But now, with pending legal issues, a gutted team, tax penalties, and debts, our offer looked generous. They took it. No negotiation, no back and forth, just a signature and a sigh of relief from their end. And just like that, I owned the company. The same company Zach and my dad told me I was too creative to be involved in. The one they said needed real business minds. The one I funded, got ghosted by, and sued. Mine now. I didn't show up to the office with a crown or anything. I had Bryce send the formal termination notices. Everyone was out. Zach, my dad, the one admin who somehow stuck around. I kept 2 employees who weren't related to the mess and gave them one-time severance. No hard feelings. Then I shut the whole thing down. No rebranding, no relaunch. Just closure. I sold the remaining equipment, pulled the plug on the website, and let the LLC dissolve. Gone. The news didn't break online. No headlines, no viral tweets, just whispers in coffee shops and awkward small talk at community networking events. Zach tried calling once. I declined. He sent a long-winded email with the subject, "We need to talk." I read the first 2 lines and archived it. 2 weeks later, I heard from Marcus, the guy Zach had laid off earlier. "Dude, did you seriously buy the company?" "Yup." "And then shut it down?" "Yup." "That's insane. I love it. I didn't do it for love. I did it because it was mine to close, and because letting them keep it would have been handing them another chance they didn't earn." Legally, everything was airtight. Bryce wrapped up the lawsuit after the sale. That meant I got both. Every cent of the $50,000 loan, back with interest, and the company itself for a bargain price before shutting it down. All perfectly legal, all by their signature. As for my family, they stopped reaching out. No dramatic apology, no heartfelt letter, just silence, which was honestly better than fake guilt. Zach moved out of state, apparently. Heard he's doing freelance consulting now. Translation: unemployed with a LinkedIn profile. Mom still sends me holiday texts. About 6 months after the buyout, she messaged, "Maybe one day we can fix this." I didn't respond. "Sure, maybe. When pigs fly a tax audit." "Dad?" "Not a word. I don't miss it." And me? Business was good. The studio expanded slowly. I hired an assistant part-time. Took on a mentorship gig at the local art school. The same one they told me was a waste of time when I first applied. Now they wanted me to come in and talk to students about composing full-time. Funny how that works. One day I was walking past a strip mall and saw an old flyer for Zach's business, still taped to a utility pole. It was sun-bleached and peeling, flapping in the wind. I stood there for a second, looking at it. It didn't feel victorious. It just felt done, which honestly was enough.